Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Homesteading Off the Grid. I'm going to work today here in just a little bit after I make this video. I'll probably be there while you're watching this. It takes a while to upload these. I'm 8 days away from quitting the job I hate that makes me miserable, which means I'm 9 days away from letting you know exactly who my employer is. You know, we read the comments, a lot of them, on our channel, and I will neither confirm nor deny who I work for at this point because I'm still there, but people who also work for this entity or who have family members who have, they know exactly who I'm talking about. And I had a brief exchange this morning with a wonderful woman in Florida who I won't mention by name because I don't want to jeopardize her employment because she's still there. But she shared a heartbreaking story with all of us here in the comments that her husband worked there also for 30 years, and he was miserable. He didn't like it, but they needed the money. He had done it for so long, and he was at the age where it would be really hard for him to move on. So he didn't. And 2 years before he was set to retire, he died of cancer. And that story broke my heart, and I thank this lady in Florida for sharing that story. And but I thank her mostly because that again gave me more confirmation that I'm doing the right thing to leave. And this pales in comparison to losing your life's partner and your soulmate. I told my wife yesterday I was going to point this out to you guys, and she said not to do this because you'll think I'm crazy. And I said, honey, they're already commenting that I need therapy, so I don't think it could get much worse. But these are the largest turnips I grew this year. You might remember seeing one of our videos where I showed you how to till a garden space if you don't have a tiller. It's called the double dig no tiller tilling method, where basically you do a lot of digging. I mean, I can link that video to the end of this one so you'll see what I'm talking about. It took me days to prepare our garden spot where we planted our turnips, our okra, our cucumbers, and this is what I got. And it's because by the time these things needed thinned out, I was at the point to where I was being forced to work 7 days a week without any days off until further notice. Further notice that never came, of course. So I went 16 days straight. Some of my coworkers went over 20 days before we were just breaking down and had to call out, which is something, like I've said before, in 44 years I've never done. I had to compromise who I am to get a reprieve, and that, you know, I was reminded of it again yesterday. I was down there weeding the okra, and I saw the turnips, and I knew there wasn't going to be anything there. I pulled them up, and this is what I got. So this thing going to happen next year. So I got up this morning, and I got up at 4, and I thought, well, let's see if I can get a little bit more sleep because I do have to work today. So I laid down on the couch after leaving the bedroom, but I was up again before 5. Started the coffee, and started thinking about going to work. And guys, this is crazy. I mean, you talk about a job that makes you physically ill. I had instant cramps in my stomach, and I went running for the bathroom. I'll leave it at that. You don't need any further details. And so I'm thinking, is it something I ate? You know, my wife made some wonderful pancit yesterday, and she put oyster sauce in it. I was wondering if maybe it was the oyster sauce or maybe she used too much. And then I thought, you know, Kevin, you've been eating your wife's food for almost 9 years. Has anything she's ever cooked ever made you sick? And the answer was no. So I thought, okay, stop thinking about work. So I got my coffee. I went out on the front porch where I always have my first cup, and I was watching the pond, and day was breaking, and I started thinking about the homestead. And here in a few days I'm going to show you our new additions. I have a mother cardinal who built a nest in a dogwood limb right down the trail here from where I'm sitting, and her babies hatched a couple days ago. I found the nest some time ago, and I've been checking on it, and she's gotten used to me. I mean, I've stood just feet away. Yesterday I was standing there, and she was bringing food to the babies. They're little and they're bald, and they're holding their little heads up. But I'm going to give them a few days, wait until they get some tuft on them, and I'll show you guys. And the golden finches are flying around like crazy this morning. But I started thinking about the homestead and what we're going to do here, and you know, my stomach stopped hurting and whatnot. So I was getting ready to come up here, and I thought, okay, well, I need to let the folks know I'm 8 days away from my job, and boom, right back into the bathroom with the stomach cramps. And I just said, you know, I've got my golden parachute, so to say, my immediate resignation letter, which will be in my pocket if I need to use it. Hopefully I can finish working out this 2 weeks notice. But I'm just trying to focus on the life after that place. And we've already started. We did something yesterday as a family that we used to do at least once a week. We enjoy doing it, but we haven't done it in 8 months because of this job I've had that was taking at least 6 and sometimes 7 days a week of my life away from my family. And that is, I always say the only time I'd really want to leave my homestead is when I need to go to the grocery store. But there are times I leave a couple times a week. And what we like to do about once a week when the weather's nice is go into town, Charlottesville, and walk around the campus of the University of Virginia because it is gorgeous. It is beautiful. And we did this yesterday for the first time in 8 months. And, we'll park behind the library after 5 p.m. because you don't have to have a parking permit and you don't have to worry about being towed. And we have this loop we do. We go in front of the rotunda and we look at Thomas Jefferson's statue. We go down to the corner where they have like a little conglomerate of some small restaurants that don't sell very good food, but they sell cold beer, and that's why the college students go there. We don't drink, so we don't participate in that, but we like to go through there. And yesterday we saw a bunch of UVA kids, future congressmen and congresswomen and CEOs, having piggyback races up and down the street. And I remember college. That's what you do. So someday these people will be casting votes to determine our futures. But they were piggyback racing yesterday, and that was endearing. So we went past Edgar Allan Poe's dorm room. And some of you watching are in the area or you've visited the area. But we were thinking yesterday we need to make a video of some of this stuff to show you guys who live far away so you can see how beautiful it is. But we didn't yesterday because we said, no, this is family time strictly. And so that's what we did. But I'm looking forward to the fact that in 9 days, not only can I tell you who I work for, or who I used to work for at that time, but we can do that once a week, and that time will never be interrupted again because I'm off doing something that I hate, that makes me miserable, that literally makes me have stomach cramps when I think about going. But I appreciate your support. I wanted to address a couple things that come up frequently in the comments. Thank so many of you, all of you who are here watching this stuff. I'm dedicating this video this morning to a guy named Pete who is in Pennsylvania, who I saw this morning. He said he loved listening to me. His job sucks too, but he listens to us in the mornings and it makes his day suck a little less. Pete, I can relate. I have a job that sucks, and I'm glad that I can help your day suck a little less with my rambles. Also, Richard in Denver, he and I were exchanging this morning. He saw the video the other day where I mentioned that I'm inspired by the band Imagine Dragons and I really like their music. He said they were just in Denver playing at Red Rocks. He didn't get to see them. I think he said his sister did, or one of his friends, and then if they go back to Denver, he's going to go see them. Richard, you're crazy. You didn't go? If they come to the Charlottesville area, I will be going. And again, as I mentioned before, I'm not into pop culture, but there are certain parts of it that I think at times are just so good. I do enjoy it. And the Imagine Dragons music is one of those bands. So anyway, a lot of people ask about my camera and my tripod. They say I need a tripod, and I agree with them. Sometimes I'll do this. I change arms, and it's not to give you a different angle. It's because one arm gets tired. So I could either get a tripod or I could talk less, which I'm also told I should consider. Okay, maybe I'll get a tripod someday, but a lot of people ask, what kind of camera do you have? It's 2018, you should upgrade. This is a Canon PowerShot A720. I mentioned this in one of my other videos because people kept asking about it. I'm kind of behind the curve when it comes to tech. I mean, I know how to use the internet, and obviously I know a little bit about social media. But when it comes to the gadgetry, I mean, Moore's Law states that the rate of technology will double every 18 months. And my take on it is, if I go out and buy the latest iPhone today for $1,000 or whatever, in a year they're going to have the next model and mine becomes obsolete. So that's a game that I've just never played. The camera that I'm holding now, that I make these videos with, we use two. We use this one for half the videos, and my wife does have an iPhone that I bought her in Manila several years ago. She'd wanted one for a long time, and it was Christmas, and my wife's happiness and my son's happiness is my happiness, so I bought her an iPhone. Okay, no further explanation really necessary. But with this one, we were at a thrift store about 3 months ago, and I saw this camera. It was $3, and it's battery operated. And so I asked the girl working at the thrift shop, does this camera work? Because there were no batteries in it. And she said, yes, sir, we test everything electronic before we put it on the shelves. So I thought, well, I'd sure hate to waste $3 if this camera didn't work. I mean, that's a gallon of gas, you know, which is 22 miles in I have a big SUV. But I took the risk. I thought, well, okay. But it works, as you can tell. So I make these videos with a $3 camera from a thrift store. We've gotten millions of views, and we're getting, I mean, we've got like 35,000 subscribers today. It was 34,000 yesterday, and thank you. And I'm not saying, oh, look at what we're doing. What I'm saying is my $3 camera obviously is working. But I have thought about it, and I've talked to my wife about an upgrade. And so one of the things we used to like to do before I had the job I hate that makes me miserable is we would get up early on Saturdays and we'd go to yard sales. Because guys, as you know, you can get a lot of good stuff at yard sales, especially outdoor tools, lawn equipment, lawn tools for next to nothing. So we decided, and it took us a while to come to this decision, that after I'm finished with this job, we're going to go to some yard sales, and if I can see like a newer model digital camera than the one I'm using that I can get for $8 or $10, I'll do an upgrade. So now, something else I want to address, and a lot of you might be thinking about this, and I appreciate all the wonderful ideas you guys have been giving us about what to do after I'm gone from this job I hate that makes me miserable. We've talked about goats, we've talked about sheep, and we're going to do some of these things, and I am going to move forward with my idea to make sure that the wildlife out here has their little portion of the property where they will have their food and where they will not be shot by me or anybody else legally on my property. You know, we saw the deer yesterday, the doe feeding her fawn out here in the middle of the field just an hour after I made yesterday's video, but we uploaded the other one first because it was a shorter video. I mean, guys, I'm taking it as signs. They're saying, hey, we live here too, we want to live in harmony with you, and the decision's been made. We're going to live in harmony with these creatures. But a lot of people have mentioned Patreon. They're like, hey, you know, people like listening to you, go to Patreon. I looked into that, and I looked into that some time ago, and I'm not knocking Patreon, and I'm not knocking anybody that uses Patreon, but that's not something that I want to do. You guys are watching me on YouTube and you're not paying anything. Some of you might be doing the YouTube Premium, YouTube Red, whatever it is, the program they have where you can pay a subscription and you don't have to see the commercials or the ads. And that's your choice. That's something you're doing willingly. That's not something I'm forcing you to do. But we're not going to charge for, I mean, I'm sitting around here talking in the mornings because my wife's still sleeping and I don't want to wake her up because her beauty sleep is effective, as you've seen when you've seen her in the other videos that she's in. I'm just not going to do it. So you can keep coming to our channel on YouTube, and it's not going to cost you anything. And again, I'm not judging people who do use Patreon. Everybody does things their own way. It's their right. It's their decision. We were on, well, we still are on Facebook. I call it Fakebook. We have like 55,000 fans on our Homesteading Off the Grid page, and we haven't posted on there for weeks. We've been transitioning away from Facebook and onto YouTube, and it looks like we're doing so more and more successfully with each passing day. And the reason why is kind of it's related to what I just talked about. We were on Facebook for years, and we had a blog with the same name as the channel, and we had people working for us who at times would stray and get off topic, and so we're doing everything ourselves now and staying on topic. But for many years, we could post our articles on Facebook, and if we had, say, 20,000 fans or 50,000 fans, we have a humor page that has almost 500,000 fans, and we could post on those pages, and everybody on that page had the option to either click on that article or click on what we posted, or not. And so some did, some didn't. But then Mark Zuckerberg, who I believe is a modern-day John D. Rockefeller, which is good and bad, changed the way he does things. He didn't start charging you, the users. He started charging the content creators. So we went from where we were making money on there through some of the blogs we owned that supplemented the writing from my novels, my books, and we didn't have to have a job I hate that makes me miserable. So But Zuckerberg came along and said, oh, we know you guys worked hard for many years to build up your following and your fans, and they like your content. Oh, but we see you're making a little bit of money doing it, so we're going to start charging you. So then he started, you've got to pay to boost your posts or people don't see it. Now, I can share a meme, which doesn't have any sort of external links, and most of the folks can see it. But if I share, like one of these videos, if we post one of our YouTube videos on our Facebook page, which we've tried to do, he limits the reach to like 1%. So if we have 55,000 fans, we put a meme, all 55,000, or not even that with memes anymore, maybe 25% of them will see that meme on their timeline. If we post an external link like a YouTube video, it's 1%, unless we pay to boost. Now, we can pay $60 and he guarantees us, I think it's 600 clicks. Okay, on 600 clicks, we make $3. So we pay $60 to lose $57. I mentioned the other day in the video, I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Mark Zuckerberg, that math doesn't work, so we're on YouTube. You can pay to boost on YouTube. We don't. We don't do that. You guys are coming here through other means, and again, we thank you for coming here. And we just kind of feel that this is the way to do things. You don't have to pay YouTube to see our videos. We don't have to pay YouTube for you to see our videos. So this works better for us than the way that things have become on Facebook does. And so this is where we are. We're not going to Patreon. And again, no offense to anybody who does. And in time, we probably won't even have a Facebook account because we just don't like how he switched it up. I mentioned he's like a modern day John Rockefeller. You know, I read a 1,100-page biography on Rockefeller. It was called Titan. Rockefeller was good and bad, like most people. I'm good and bad. We are all good and bad. There's a yin and yang to the universe that affects everything in the universe. Some of you might not know that Rockefeller did this. You know, long before gasoline and gasoline-powered engines, Rockefeller was already wealthy. He had made his wealth on kerosene lamp oil. And because that's how people lit their houses before electricity and the light bulb. So Rockefeller wanted to gain total market share of the kerosene lamp oil industry, and this is kind of what Mark Zuckerberg has done with social media. So John Rockefeller had henchmen he would send out into the market, and a lot of folks, they bought their kerosene oil for lighting at the general store, or where you go and buy pretty much any good. So his henchmen would go into the stores and they'd see that there was Standard Oil kerosene or lighting oil, which is, Rockefeller's company, Standard Oil, before it was demonopolized and broken up into Exxon and several other companies. But then they also sold competitors' products. So Rockefeller, through his henchmen, would go into these stores and they'd say, look, we want you to only sell our product. And they'd say, well, no, we want to give our customers an option, which we want to give our viewers an option. We want to give you the free option. And Rockefeller's men would say, well, look, if you don't just sell Standard Oil, we're going to set up a store right across the road from you. We're going to sell everything you sell, but we're going to sell it at cost. We are intentionally going to not make money for the sole purpose of putting you out of business. And they laughed. They thought they were kidding, but then they did it. So he only had to do that a couple of times before people became so intimidated that they would only sell Standard Oil's lighting fuel. Another thing he did is he would go to other oil refining companies, and this is after the gasoline-powered engine came out, and he's making his money now on gasoline. And he would offer to buy his competition for pennies on the dollar of what the companies were worth. And they would say, no way, I've worked hard, I'm not giving you years worth of my work for next to nothing. And he'd say, okay, well, if you don't, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to rent every tanker car that this railway owns that you use to ship your oil to the refinery, and you won't be able to refine your oil. So you'll go out of business because you're refining all this, or you're drilling all this oil you can't refine because you can't get it to market because I rented the cars. I will run empty cars up and down the railways. And they thought he was joking. Well, he did it, and he only had to do that a few times before people would sell him their businesses for pennies on the dollar of what it was worth. And years later, these folks would begrudgingly state that they actually made more money off of the stock they came to own because he'd give them a little bit of cash, but mostly Standard Oil stock. They got rich off the Standard Oil stock, and they made far more money than they ever would of their business. So this is where I see Mark Zuckerberg. Now, I believe in capitalism. I believe that if somebody owns a company, they have the right to choose how they run it. You know, a lot of you came here through a video I made about how I bought this property. Somebody had been taking the hay for years, but then I said no because it's mine. I bought it for my uses. So I would be a hypocrite to say Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have the right to run his company the way he's chosen to run it. He does have that right. Do I think he's making a mistake? It's not my say, it's not my call. I don't think anybody's going to knock him off his pedestal. I think 20 years from now, Facebook is still going to be around. I think Mark Zuckerberg will at some point become the wealthiest man in the world because that seems to be his goal. That's not my goal. So we politely bowed out of his way of doing business, and we've come over to YouTube, and we're going to continue to create content for free and not charge people for it. And we hope that YouTube never starts charging us for you to see it. And if they do, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, we're going to continue to make our videos with our $3 thrift store camera. We're not going to charge you to watch them. We will always be forever grateful that you do. There's one thing that comes to mind when I think about Zuckerberg's situation, and this is why I am definitely not going the Patreon route. And again, those who have, I'm not judging you. That everybody's got to do what they think's best for them. And I'm going to wrap up with this because the sun's above the poplar tree over here that has all the tiny little t-shirt leaves on it. My first real job after college was I was a stockbroker for about 8 years, and I remember one time I was at this. They had these quarterly get-togethers where everybody talked about how great they were, and there were these two top producers. One guy was the second biggest producer in this firm at the time, and the other guy was a big producer, but he wasn't as big as the other guy. So the guy that was number two, I mean, he had like celebrity type status. He was young, he was good looking, looked like a movie star, and he was just going on this rant about how you make sure you're getting paid to sell your products. Why would you sell a CD that only pays you a 1% commission when you can sell a bond that pays 3%? It's all about getting paid. And you know, here I am, young and impressionable, thinking, wow, man, this guy's like, he knows what he's talking about. So he went on for 30 minutes on this. The next guy spoke. This guy was older. He'd been around a long time. He wasn't making as much money as the other guy, but he wasn't hurting. He said one thing. He made one statement, and that's all he said, and the meeting was over. He looked at us and he said, guys and girls, when you start selling investments based upon what you get paid versus what your client gets paid, that's the first day of the end of your business. And that's all he said, and the meeting was adjourned. That guy, he's still with this firm. Well, last I knew he was older. He might be retired by now. The other guy who was talking about getting paid, about a year after that, he got busted for all kinds of, well, you know, it was activity that was not appropriate for the people he was dealing with, and he was told to leave the firm. He was asked to leave the firm, or he would be told he would leave, and so he was no longer there. So you know, we had a saying on Wall Street that sometimes the bulls win, sometimes it's the bears, but the pigs will always get slaughtered. So these are some lessons I've learned throughout life. I've learned a lot of lessons. I've got a lot more to learn, but I keep that in mind. So thank you for being here with us on YouTube. We're never going to charge you for these videos. And I've got to go get ready to go to work, and 8 more days, guys. So in 9 days, I'm going to have a nice story to tell. Thank you to everybody who subscribed. We got over 1,000 subscribers yesterday with our $3 camera, no tripod, and without charging you to watch our videos. So we really appreciate it. I hope each and every one of you have a great day, and I'll see you next time from Homesteading Off the Grid. And here's your parting shot. It's probably blinding you because that sun's so bright, but my, is it beautiful.